Let's explore the rectangle a little bit more in depth. Before you, you see a rectangle. You're probably scratching your head going, that's not a rectangle, there's a circle. There actually is no circle in QML. It's a rectangle and you set the radius. This is actually a little bit confusing, but we're going to wrap it up. And we're also going to show you how to do a simple gradient. It's extremely easy. So let's go ahead and play around with this. First things first, I'm going to take something from copy and paste land. Rectangle, documentation, this is a very basic type. It is an item. We literally just covered this in the previous video. There is no circle. Say it with me. There is no circle. There is no circle. All right. Rectangle. Now, if you want to be smart here and go, all right, let's try circle. Oh, no, there's no circle. All right, rectangle. And let's go ahead and play with property here. We're going to say ID, my item. Don't really need the ID, but let's just do it anyways. And let's say anchors, center in parent, color, and let's make this red. Let's make this width of 200 and a height of 200. And let's make this visible. Don't really need to do it. It's visible by default, but I just want to show you it's got some basic properties here. And there it is in all of its glory. Now, we can also set it to invisible. Why would you want to do this? Well, maybe you're just trying to be sneaky. But point is, you can make items visible or invisible at a whim. It's not super hard. Now, borders are optional. We're going to go ahead and show you how to make a border. You notice how it's border dots. So if we just hit tab, and then we have all these cool features. Look at that. So we're going to set the color. And again, it's just you can spell it out. Now, you can actually type in the word black, or you can do the HTML color code. Completely up to you which you want to do. And then let's do the border, width. And this is in pixels. So let's save and run. And there is our 200 by 200 rectangle centered in the parent with a border width of 5 in black. Now, I did promise we're going to show some gradients, and we want to show a radius. So let's look at the radius first. Radius, and let's say we want to do this by 30. Notice how it's rounded the corners. That's the radius, or the radius of the rectangle. The higher that number, the more rounded effect we're going to get. Typically, if you want a perfect circle, you would set it to the width or the height, whichever is the bigger number. So we're just going to set it to the width, and bang, we now have a circle. Let's go ahead and add our gradient in here. And gradients are also super easy. I'm just going to plug in some documentation here. When in doubt, right click, and we're going to auto indent. There we go. And gradient. Notice how this is a property. We're not making an actual object. We're not saying gradient, because that would be an actual object or a component. What we're doing is we're setting the gradient property of the rectangle. So let's say gradient. And let's lowercase that. See, now the editor's all confused on what I'm trying to do here. Now, let's actually make a gradient. So what we're doing is we're saying the gradient property of the rectangle, we're going to create a new child called a gradient. Sneaky, huh? Now, gradients have starts and stops positions. Now, if you're a little bit confused about gradient, what's going on here? This is the same thing as, say, border or radius or color. It's just a property. And we're taking that property and we're making a new gradient item, because everything's an item. And we're going to set the properties of that gradient item. And we're going to say gradient stop. And we're just going to set some children here. We're going to say position, and we want this from 0.0. Color, and let's say we want this in red. Magic of copy and paste. And copy and paste has failed us. There we go. Blue. Interesting how that works. Notice that we're going from absolute 0 to absolute 1. So 0 there. So it's 100%. Let's go ahead and run this. Ta-da! And you could play around with this if you really, really wanted to. Like you could say 0.5 and see what that looks like. Notice how it goes to 50%, then starts the gradient. That's the gradient stop. Gradients are a little bit more complex, and we're going to cover those in the intermediate tutorial, but I want to just kind of introduce, because someone out there is going to say, hey, how do I do a gradient? Really, you just play around with the gradient object, and then you do gradient stops.